The Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast is an unscripted and free-flowing conversation that may touch on mature subjects. While the opinions are real, the research probably isn't, and we can't help that Atticus will probably talk about the Knicks.
And here we go.
He trucked dudes. It wasn't just in a preseason game. He did it pretty consistently. He left dudes saying, "What happened?"
Fletcher Cox is going to be around. How do you feel about that? Anyway.
And I'm just going on eye test here, right? Like, I like the look of this coaching staff, you know?
All right, enough of this. Let's see what kind of shit we get into today. Lloyd, it's all yours. Can you hear it ringing?
Yep.
He's not going to answer. This is good. Yeah, this is going to voicemail. Although I am calling his work. That could be part of the problem. Let's try his mobile phone. There we go. Let's try this number. Might be better.
Hey, what's up, man?
They're taking an L. Hop on the podcast.
Oh man, I'm sick.
Oh, you're sick?
Yeah, I got I don't know, I woke up dizzy all day. I went to work, couldn't work, went to the doctor, got a I don't know what he gave me, meclizine or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been throwing up all day.
Have you thought about getting a rapid test maybe, in all seriousness?
Well, I got the COVID shot.
Oh, okay.
So I went to the doctor and I don't have COVID, but they gave me yeah, we are taking a L, by the way. Not to ignore that. Ondansetron or something.
Okay.
Which is really helping. I haven't thrown up in about 3 hours, so that's great.
All right. Well,
yeah, I'm not gonna join. I'm feeling like shit. I'm in bed.
Not a problem, bro. Get better.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Sorry about that, L. I feel a little bit bad about recording this phone call now.
Oh, it's okay. I can take it. It's all right. It's all good, man.
All right.
See you later, all right?
We'll catch you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.
I guess we'll just start it here then.
We might as well just roll into it now.
So welcome to the first Friday edition of the Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast. As we've heard, Atticus will not be joining us tonight. He's faking sick because of that L. The Knicks just took. They're back to a losing record, I believe.
I mean, it makes for a very interesting fun fact at the outro.
I mean, that's just what's going to happen. That's just how we're going to run that today. So yeah, before we get back into our continuation of the draft, there is one big bit of NFL news I want to kind of bring up, get your opinion on it. So they announced they're going to a 17-game season. And if I'm being honest, I don't really know how I feel about that. Like 17 games, I mean, one extra game. I just look at that as another 40 some odd snaps for someone important to get hurt, because I don't think the 17th game changes anything at the end of the season. And if it does, like, I don't think it makes the season that much more intriguing than a 16 games. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like an extra game for the more football is more football. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they giving up preseason games or a couple? There's only 2 preseason games now or something.
There's still going to be the same amount. It's still 20 weeks. It's still 20 games, right? So they're going to play the 3 preseason instead of 4.
Okay.
And I quite honestly, it's probably a compromise with the players' union between an 18 game and 2 preseasons, or a 17 game and 3 preseason games, right? Because no one really plays anything in preseason anyway. At least not in the last few years. They it's completely different. You were used to watching like week 3 was typically okay, we're going to throw our first string starters out there for about 3/4 of the game. They're not doing that anymore, right? They're just
Right.
too many people getting hurt. So, I agree. I don't really know how to feel about it. I like the fact that the Eagles are playing the Jets in week 17, though, because that's the difference between 5 wins and 6 wins for the Eagles. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, because I think what we're going to see is you're going to see a lot more teams go in the Rams method where their starters will not play a single snap in the preseason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, more football's nice. I'm not going to complain about that. More games that matter on paper, I guess, is nice, but I just don't see it coming down to the 17th game that there's no more intrigue that's going to add. I think the Browns are playing the Cardinals at home this year. It's just so they're just going to throw random
teams. Is it the
Cardinals?
I don't think.
Yeah, we have the Cardinals. We have the Cardinals at home. That is our 17th game.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I thought they did it like AFC East, NFC East, what place you finished in the division. That's the way they figured out the schedule.
All I know, because obviously I follow some Brown stuff, and JJ. It's specifically JJ Watt and the Cardinals are coming to Progressive Field, or not Progressive. That's they're coming to First Energy on. Right. So, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, it would be one thing if it was maybe a way to start a new rivalry. Like, that's what that should be, right? Like, if we're gonna have a 17th game, keep everything else the way it is because it mathematically worked out. Excuse me, hold on. Excuse me. And then start a new rivalry. Yeah, like we should be playing like Detroit or something, because that's like a proximity rivalry. Like who's a team?
Pittsburgh.
Like maybe Pittsburgh. Yeah, you guys should be playing Pittsburgh.
The Jets should be playing the Giants. Buffalo should. Well, they play New England already, so forget that one. But
Buffalo should be playing Syracuse football. The point is, like, you could like Tampa Bay should be playing Miami. Like, just something like that. Like, I mean, you're gonna have loose ends around, so maybe Buffalo plays Jacksonville because they're both kind of like the odd ones out in their states. But yeah, that's what it should be. It should be like a proximity opponent that you can build a rivalry game, like a true rivalry game with. Like, yeah, like that would be interesting. It just alternate. This year would be at if we play Detroit, this year it's at Cleveland, next year it's at Detroit. You just keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
I
like it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Goodell, hey, free of charge. Go ahead and take that one. You can have that. I'd rather see that than them play the Cardinals. To be,
I mean, I don't know about free. I'll take a percentage of their gross revenue.
Yeah, well,
give me a point on that. We're good.
Yeah. What do you think? 2%, so we can each take 1%. Yeah. Maybe 2.5%, so we can toss Atticus a little bone because he's normally here.
Normally here, but since he got sick when his brainchild
got sick. Yeah. Man, if I got sick every time the Cavaliers lost, which, by the way, I would just like to point out, for as bad as the Cavaliers have been with this loss, they're only 6 games, I believe, behind the New York Knickerbockers for 4th place in the East. So 5th place in the East, whatever the Knicks are.
The East is terrible. That's number one.
East is not good.
You have, and I don't want to turn this into a basketball, but it always happens anyway. I mean, you have your top 3 teams, and then outside of that, it's Drek. Right? Yeah. It's terrible.
Right. Well, I would just like to point out, for as much as you say I talk about the Browns, Atticus talks about the Knicks so much that even in an instance that he's not here, we're still sitting here talking about the Knicks. So,
well,
I would just like to point out.
Partially, I was preparing myself for him to be here after they took an L against the Mavericks, right? Like I thought it was a perfect segue into what we do, and lo and behold, he's sick. So get better, Atticus. On a real note, but I'm gonna miss a little banter going back and forth.
Yeah, that L is not helping him sleep all night. That's for sure.
No, we could have had side bets whether or not he was gonna have a Knicks hat on or not. The over under prop bet, yes or no.
So okay, we can do that now though. If he doesn't have, but he's gonna. I assume I assume he'll watch this, right? Actually, this will be the test, right?
Test.
So so you want to bet if he has a hat on, if they're still under 500 next week, does he have a hat for the podcast? A Knicks hat?
See, I don't even know if that's a fair barometer. If they don't win a game before the next podcast, like not throughout the week, but the last game before the next podcast, if they don't win, he's not wearing a Knicks hat.
You don't think so? Because, I mean, let's be honest. He definitely posted something about Daniel Jones today being the best quarterback in the NFC East, which is laughable because there is Dak Prescott in the East.
I think Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, Fitzpatrick, you know what you're getting. Like, Fitzpatrick's going to put up more points. And honestly, I don't like it'd be interesting to see like over the last 3 years because Fitzpatrick has started fairly regularly. Who's got more interceptions? Like, so is Daniel Jones maybe I mean, Dak's number 1, Fitzpatrick's number 2, maybe Daniel Jones is 2B if you want to like say, flip a coin on that one. And then, sorry, but as of right now, until we see more, Jalen Hurts is number 3 or 4, however you want to word that.
Well, let me ask you, like, just on paper, is he a better athlete than Daniel Jones?
Jalen Hurts? I mean, if like I was going to line them up for like the 40, yeah, I'd assume the 40. Yeah, if I was running an offense like the Baltimore Ravens run, then yes, I'd rather have
Jones is fast. Let's not deny that. Jones is pretty fucking fast.
But he's clumsy.
Like, he tripped on the 20-yard line, so there's that.
he kind of runs like when you see like a 5-year-old and they're going faster than their legs can like handle, so they're like kind of doing that like they're half falling, and that's kind of making them go even faster because their like whole body weight is forward. That's kind of what he does. Like, it's just weird that he can run that fast because like he's definitely one of those quarterbacks. Like, don't get me wrong, he can throw and whatever, I get that, but like when you see him run around, it's like I watch him, it's like I could do that. I know I can't, right? But you see him do it, and it's like, yeah, Jalen Hurts, you watch, you're like, okay, I can't do that. He does it. It's like, okay, if he can do it, I could do it. I could get out there and throw an interception and trip over a 20-yard line. I can do that pretty easily.
I mean, does he really throw well? He's got a 60% completion percentage in his career. That's not super.
It's not super, but New York's kind of had some dropsies the last few. Like I'm pretty sure they're up there in like drops by receivers over the last couple of years too. So I mean, he has like, let's be honest, like he hasn't been working with a ton. Like I'm not going to nail him. Like I'm not prepared to nail Daniel Jones statistically. I don't think he's as good as Atticus thinks he is, but I also think Atticus is like, like you could be the quarterback for the New York Giants, and Atticus would be saying you're the best quarterback. And no offense to your quarterbacking skills, but you could suit up tomorrow. You could suit up for the New York Giants tomorrow, and Atticus would be saying you're the best quarterback in the NFC.
I could throw a nice like screen pass to you,
and I could skedoot for 3 yards and trip over the 20-yard line. We could. I mean, that is the Giants' offense in a nutshell, right? Oh, the Giants, man. He's not even here to defend his team. We should really let's get into the draft. Let's just get back up with the draft here. We left around pick 17. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll get back into the draft, but the next time that he doesn't show up, we're going to spend the entire time tearing apart the New York.
The draft's a month away. So, I mean, if he's not on in the next 3 weeks, that definitely gives us something to talk. We can just bash the Knicks and the Giants for an entire podcast. I'm here for that.
Entire podcast.
just an hour solid of bashing all things New York. Hey, even the Yankees lost. Is he a Yankees fan or is he a Mets fan? Do we know?
I'm going to say he's a Yankees fan.
I mean,
I don't know for a fact, but I want to say, yeah. Okay. He's not from Queens, so like only people from Queens are Yankee fans. Long Island and Queens. I think Gorky's probably a Met fan.
Gorky, yeah. Just because I feel like if you're a Jets fan, that's like a gateway drug into liking the Mets. I feel like the two go hand in hand. The Yankees lost. Man, he's just not having a good sports week. I will say the Mets did just sign former Indian Francisco Lindor to a 10-year, $300 million contract. So good for Frankie L there.
Still gonna try to get my boy to play baseball. He can hit a country mile. So You need to start.
That's all
playing
you
baseball.
need now. There is like, it's interesting, and we'll get to the draft in a minute. But now that we're talking about this, do you ever listen to Mad Dog Sports Radio?
Yeah.
So I was listening to them, and they have a bunch of they're kind of a little bit more freeform, like a lot less corporate feeling than ESPN, which is why I listen to them until they get a bunch of people on that just start rambling about whatever, and then I turn it off. But there are a lot of baseball fans on that channel, and they're always talking about how like younger fans aren't in it. And I'll tell you why baseball is not popular anymore, not as popular as it once was, because you have the vast majority of the teams in the MLB were basically farm teams for like the 5 top spenders.
Yeah.
Like the Yankees, to an extension, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Dodgers. That's really about it. Like, who's another big spender? Like, I can't think of anyone else that but until they institute a salary cap, and like I'm tired of watching the Indians build up a team. Like, we'll spend 5 years building up a team. We'll be good for 3 years. And then we have to get rid of all our parts because we can't afford them. And they go get $300 million contracts from the Mets. And there's there's the fact that there's nothing stopping the Mets if they wanted to other than their own ability to afford it. They could give $300 million contracts to everybody. And there's nothing stopping that. And until they remedy that, and they won't, because like of all the sports, baseball is the only one that has a strong players union. Until they remedy that, like, baseball is just going to continue to decline, because until the Indians are going to be on a downward trend now for like 3 or 4 seasons until they get prospects back, and then they'll be good, and I'll pay a little bit of attention. But every year, you pay less and less attention.
Yep.
That's all I got to say.
I don't pay attention to baseball until like October, maybe September if there's a tight race.
Right, tight race, or something like a few years ago when the A's were. Well, the Indians even more recently, like, when they're doing those like 20-game win streaks, like I'll start paying attention to that. But yeah, like I couldn't even tell you like who like the top 5 batters on the Indians are this year. Like I have no idea. Yeah. All I know is we've traded, like, everyone that made the World Series, like helped us make the World Series, is gone. That's like all I know about it. I have a Kipnis t-shirt. That's like the most recent player I have. So, and I actually got it at Old Navy for really cheap, because they didn't resign. I don't know if he signed, like he's done in the MLB, but he didn't resign. So his shirts were like $10. So I was like, all right, I'll take a Kipnis shirt for $10. And I kind of look like Jason Kipnis. So,
all right,
whatever.
I don't even know.
You're like,
I don't know who he is. So sure, we'll go with that.
He looks like this, in case you were wondering.
There you go. I'll be long.
His beard's a little bit more maintained than mine is right now. But other than that, and a little less gray, because I think he's like only in his early 30s. Anyway, so ready for the draft? Ready to get ready?
Yeah, we're on the Raiders, man.
Yeah, so we're at pick 17 with the Raiders. So they just went ahead and dismantled one of the better lines. They spent like 3 seasons building up a line just to basically say, screw this and get rid of it all. So, I mean, when you're John Gruden and you're drunk on power and they can't afford to get rid of you, I guess you could do these kind of things. I think they go offensive line here. They have to. They have.
They should.
I mean, they did lose Aguilar, so I could see possibly a receiver, but I feel like this is and maybe this is the grandmaster plan. You get rid of your veterans for cheap rookie contracts, and that's the plan, with it being a deep offensive line draft. So with that mindset, I think they take an offensive lineman. Just looking at the offensive lineman that would be left, it looks like there's a guy that's highly rated out of USC whose name I'm Elijah Vera Tucker. It's like a hyphenated name.
Yes.
Yeah. USC turns out good lineman, right? I feel like USC quarterbacks don't end up doing well in the NFL. Like Carson Palmer's probably the best one I can think of. And he was kind of a journeyman. But they turn out good linemen and good receivers, I feel like, come out of USC.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
And I agree with they should take an offensive lineman. They need help everywhere on defense though, as well. So, they could very easily go defense in this slot as well. But if you're smart, you're going to go offensive lineman, right? But it's Mike Mack and John Gruden. What the fuck are they going to do?
Well, the thing is, Gruden's kind of a wild card, right? Like, I feel like he doesn't like if there's anyone who would go like spend all week telling you, yeah, I'm going to go this way, and then suddenly at the last minute be like, you know what, we're going to go tight end. Like he just seems like that kind of guy, right? Like we're just gonna go ahead and throw a curveball just to screw with everyone. Like I feel like there was a while when Bill Belichick would watch ESPN and be like, oh, they're recommending I run this or this running back against this team, so I'm not going to play him at all. Like I feel like Bill Belichick does that. John Gruden seems like the other guy who's like, oh, they're all projecting us to pick this, so I'm going to pick a punter. Like he just for funsies, just to throw a curveball in everyone.
Just for funsies.
Yeah. So we got offensive linemen there. Next up, we have the Dolphins on their second pick.
Who do we go with them at 6? Did we say they were getting Pitts?
Yeah, I think we gave them Pitts, or we gave them a receiver. We gave them an a receiver. I don't remember which receiver. But we definitely gave them a receiver.
So they still need a ton too, right? So if they got a wide receiver, they need some defensive help. You know, I think they need an edge. You know, we talked about the 2 guys from Miami already. I think there's a pretty good chance both of them are still there. If not both, then definitely one of them are still there.
I think they'll both still be there at this point. Yeah.
I think you got a cornerback that might still be there too. You know, I like Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech, but his little microsurgery on his back freaks me out a little bit. It's reportedly not a huge procedure, but it's back surgery.
Right. And at that age, right? Yeah. I mean, the one thing about that though is, as a cornerback, like obviously the back, but you're not getting like, you're the one dishing out the punishment. You're not going to like, it's not like you're worried about him getting hit in the back as much, like obviously he's a DB. So the one thing I would say is, I feel like if they're maybe the only thing I would say is you stick on offense, just because I feel like my personal philosophy, and I know this is kind of getting out there, but defense, like you just need a decent defense. Like I feel like they're at decent defense level, right? Like you wouldn't be upset if the Eagles were playing with their defense. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like you only invest so much in defense if it comes down to, do I want to invest in offense or do I want to, it's turning into an offensive game, right? Like they hamstring your defense. You could put the best defense out there. Like the best defense out there was the Rams, and they didn't make it out of the divisional, right? So I feel like, if you're them, you have a decent enough defense. I think you see what you got with Tua, and you kind of go the same route the Giants are going with Dimes, and you just say, hey, we're going to give you all the weapons we can. And their other need, I think, on offense is running back. And this is the time in the draft where you can kind of take a running back. You're later in the first, so you're not giving them one of the larger rookie contracts. And if you're going to go running back, I think the best running back in this draft is going to be Travis Etienne out of Clemson. And I just think, I think with Tua, because again, we talked in the last podcast, I don't think they're totally sold on Tua. So I think it's kind of a situation where, okay, we're going to load you with weapons, see what you do. And if you're not impressing us enough, if we don't see enough growth by Thanksgiving, then we're going to, think about going a different quarterback next year or whatever. But I think you're going to start seeing a lot more teams doing that, because now's the like when you have a quarterback you think that's going to be there for a couple of years, you load up on the offensive side, because now's when you can afford to, because the game lends itself to offense now. You can draft a bunch of things and throw a bunch of crazy stuff out there, because everything is about getting points scored once they decide definitively what a catch is anyway. But that's another time. That's another story for another podcast.
We can maybe slip that in when we're bashing the New York Giants. We talk about what a catch is and not, since they can't seem to catch the ball regardless. And I agree. I think that a running back makes some sense for Miami right now. I personally like Harris out of Alabama a little bit better than EDN. The Alabama racehorses in the NFL have had, they sustain, which is odd for NFL running backs, right? Like, what's his name?
Derrick Henry.
No, well, Derrick Henry, obviously, but he's not that old. Who just left Baltimore?
Yeah. Something the third. He was the Heisman Trophy winner. I know
Yes, he was.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't
even place it. I feel terrible.
Big trust. Yeah. Let me look it up.
Yeah. But Harris.
Mark Ingram.
Mark Ingram. Yeah. I wanted to say Matt, and that's where I was getting stuck. But so I think I like either one, and either one makes sense. They're similar. They're north and south runners, not east-west runners. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. They both had decent quarterbacks thrown to them. So, and they're both coming in, kind of a pro-style offense what they played in college. So, definitely makes a lot of sense. The only other thing that you might want to throw in here is an offensive lineman, right? Like, we've been so, like, star power heavy up to this point in the draft that, I think they also need, if Tua is your guy or even if he's not your guy, the next guy is going to need an offensive line in front of him.
Well, what's interesting is I think this draft in particular, because you had people sitting out last year, I think this draft's got a lot more names than your normal draft because you have all the people that sat out, plus you have players that came to the surface because they filled in for those players. Yep. So you just have a lot of talent coming out this year. And plus, you have a couple guys like Travis Etienne, for example, who went back, who could have came out last year, but went back because he wanted another shot at a championship. So, I mean, it is what it is. But this year, I think this year is just a good offensive draft. There's just a lot of offensive talent to be had. And I think a lot of teams are just leaning into that offense first mentality right now. So what do we definitively want to give the Dolphins?
Running back.
So Etienne or the guy from Alabama?
Yeah.
I'll let you call it.
I'm going to go Harris.
Harris? Okay.
Alabama.
So Etienne's still on the board. All right. There is one reason why I want to get rid of Etienne, but we'll get into that in a few picks here. Why? Because if Etienne doesn't go there, I kind of feel like I know where he's going, but we won't. We'll touch on that in a few picks. So next up, we have the football team.
Let's give a shout out to Gorky here on this one, right? Like he has said since about week 4 of last year that they just need to keep the name, right? And I agree with him. It works. Like move on. You don't need to figure out a mascot. It's the Washington football team. Just keep it.
Well, and just not to continue shouting out to Gorky, but he's also been on he's right that in the fact that he's been on talking for a couple weeks now about the like quietly good, under the radar offseason they've had. They've made a few really shrewd moves. The only thing with them is they clearly don't have a quarterback of the future in Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's definitely a quarterback of the moment. But I feel like in that division particularly, he's more than enough to win that division, right? Especially with that defense. Now, the one thing, so with this pick for the football team, I feel like you either go either receiver here, right? Get another weapon on offense. Someone is McLaurin the running back or is he the receiver? Who's their receiver?
That's McLaurin.
Okay. Yeah, either someone to complement McLaurin or I will say for as good as their front seven is, their defense or their secondary was, in today's pass happy NFL, I think it's going to be impossible to ever be completely happy with your secondary. But, their secondary was definitely the weaker end of that defense. So maybe they go cornerback here. Those would be my two predictions for them. I will say they have a good defense already. Maybe you go wide receiver to, because at this point, I feel like you just have to be able, because the one thing, if I'm Washington, the one thing that scares me in the East right now is Dallas's offense.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we can if I'm Washington, I feel like, okay, if we get a comparable offense, right? Maybe not as good, but if we get if their offense is, this hard and our offense is here, but we have the way better defense. We do. So what do you think? Receiver or secondary help? Which way do you go here if you're Washington?
If I'm Washington, the only position I go here for at 19 on the offensive side of the ball is an offensive lineman, right? They still haven't recouped from the Trent Williams deal, right? Like, that was a huge hole to fill. It's not filled yet. Let's get that in there, right? Fitzpatrick is a gunslinger. He's going to need some time. Like on paper, it looks great. And plus, they got Curtis Samuel as well. So they got a compliment for McLaurin. McLaurin's going to be a stud. I'll agree with Gorky on that one. I mean, you just look at the long bombs that Fitzpatrick likes to throw. McLaurin's got the speed. Fitzpatrick has the arm. Now you got Samuels to complement him, so you can't double up on McLaurin. It works out well. Tight end might be a secondary, but there's after Pitts, is there a decent tight end to take in the first round?
Or worth it 19? No, not worth a high mid first round pick.
So secondary is where I go.
Okay.
I go secondary. So who's left there? It really, it really all depends on who goes. If someone takes I don't think Fairley drops this far, but I think he also can.
Well, just to be fair, he has in our draft. He's still there. We haven't given him to anyone yet.
I say he goes there.
Get that secondary help. The surgery notwithstanding, he was arguably the best DB before the surgery. So yeah, at this point, if you're getting like high end talent, there's like a question mark somewhere, like at this point in the first round. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
you're getting someone that slid, whether it be character issues or an injury or whatever the case might be. Like, but yeah, I feel like if you want to go secondary, you can't do. That's a great slot for them to pick him up. And many would argue he's one of the best, possibly the best, barring the injury in the draft. So that's not a bad spot for him. So we'll go ahead and give Farley. It's funny you said that because you don't know if he'd slide this far, but then again, we've been doing this and here he is. So yeah, that seems like a good match. So we'll go there. Next thing we got is the Bears. I feel like the Bears just have to go complete offense, right?
I think they need a receiver, right? And no one talks about the I think is Tony out of Florida, right? Like he's not your Gucci pick or your bougie pick, but he's a explosive player, right? And you get him the ball, he's probably going to do something with it. It's kind of short, but like we've seen a lot of short wide receivers come out recently, so that's not really a thing anymore, right? Like in the 6'3", 220-pound receiver is, not everybody's, Metcalf, just a freak of nature.
Yeah, he's got kind of that Percy Harvin feel to him, which, they just need playmakers up in Chicago.
Who was also out of Florida, by the way.
Yeah. And they don't they need playmakers. Their quarterback positions, not great, but that doesn't mean you got to give them weapons. They don't have a lot of playmakers on that offense. So I think a good explosive playmaker. Because their running back situation's okay. They're it's weird I feel like all the short players are on Chicago though. Like their running back's kind of small too, right? Like all their players are. Yeah. Andy Dalton's not that tall either for a quarterback. So, but
he's not a bad quarterback either.
He's not horrible, but I can understand why their fans are not excited about Andy Dalton, right? Like,
well, his claim to fame is he can't get out of the first round when he was in Cincinnati and they had decent teams.
Well, Cincinnati can't get out of the first round regardless. So, when's the last time Cincinnati made it to the one Super Bowl, and then have they made it out of the first round since?
No, but they did make the playoffs a few years in a row. They were not a bad team,
Yeah,
but they couldn't win in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I remember that one. There was that one year they were like legit Super Bowl, contenders, and then like the last game of the season or like the second to last game of the season, like Palmer went down.
Yep.
And either the running back or receiver went. I forget who the other person was. And so then the starting quarterback in their playoff game against Pittsburgh was like John Kitna or something like that. and I just remember reading an article at the time, and it was like John Kitna was basically auditioning for another team by like how many he just kept throwing to Ocho Cinco or whatever over and over again to make himself look good. So yeah, receiver here, we can go with that guy from Florida. Yeah, I feel like Chicago's got to do something on offense because their defense, at least for the immediate future, is at least for the next couple of years is pretty stout. So I don't feel like they need defensive help. So now we're on the Colts. And this is getting kind of harder because like now it's like we're getting to teams that like are kind of already like they're good where they are. But
I think they need defense, right? Like their offense was adequate last year, if not better than adequate. That's a poor choice of words. But with an aging Phillip Rivers, they sustained themselves and played very well, right?
Did they resign T.Y. Hilton, or is he's still like who's the number one? That would be my question.
I think Hilton's back.
Is he?
I think he took a pay cut to come back.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. And then they got that dude who wouldn't give Carson number 11.
Which something just tells me don't draft him in fantasy, right? Like I feel like you don't give the quarterback your number. Yikes. And
they have a good running back.
All things aside, I think this call me crazy, but wouldn't Fitzgerald on the Colts make sense? Doesn't the Colts just seem like the type of team that Fitzgerald goes to? I just like the aura of the Colts just has that like veteran friendly.
That's a perfect receiver for Carson Wentz.
Right? Like I just if I'm the Colts, I know we're kind of getting away from the draft, but I feel like I go after Fitzgerald a little bit. I mean, the only tough sell would be, obviously like you're competing against Tampa Bay, you can be like, hey, come catch a couple passes and win a Super Bowl, like it's that kind of thing. Like the Colts are far from a shoe-in, but I mean, really the only other competition in their division is the Titans, right? And they're right there. It's not like it's like a huge gap. It's neck and neck. It's going to come down to like a few plays.
Didn't they have the same record?
Yeah, they had the same record last year, just the Titans happen to have the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to come down to a couple plays between them. So, I mean, I feel like Fitzgerald on this team works. That being said, defense, the thing about the NFC South in general is none of their teams have the AFC South, none of their teams have a great pass rush, right? Like they all have adequate, like the Colts had a streaky defense, but they had an opportunistic, we're going to get turnover. Like we're just going to have that game where we get 7 turnovers somehow defense.
Yeah.
They don't have adequate, them or the Titans really don't have adequate defensive line. So you think one of the Miami guys go here. There's still some high rated players out of Penn State. I
think what's his face Pay from Michigan.
Okay.
I think that's the quality pick there. I think he's still the best on the board at that position from an edge. The guys coming out of Miami are both interior linemen. So, I think Pay here from Michigan.
Okay. Yeah,
I think it's just it's like he's got a really high ceiling, but he's still really good. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And at this point of the drafts, the time, you are taking guys that maybe have high upside and stuff. And at this point of the draft, I feel like this is where you see a lot of like pieces go that are more safer bets, like cornerback, defensive line, stuff like that. It's more quality. Like there's less busts that happen. I feel like, at this point of the draft with like, if you go defensive edge, right, you're going to at least get a solid piece, if not necessarily like a breakout star. So that being said, next up we have the Titans at 22. Now they've actually lost a lot of receivers. So
did they lose a tight end too?
No, I don't think so. Did they?
Who was their tight end?
It's funny because he's always one of the top fantasy tight ends. You'll have to Google that. I can't remember his name, but I know he's like always like the 5th best fantasy tight end.
Delanie Walker.
Yeah, there he is. He's still there, right? They didn't lose him, did they?
No, they did.
Oh, did they?
Yep.
But again, I mean, Pitts isn't going to be here, so I don't think tight end is the play at 22.
Fairmouth out of Penn State, man. Dude put up some impressive numbers. Like impressive.
What's his draft grade though? Like, because the thing I'm also against is like I get filling a need, but at the same time, like if there's a good chance he's going to be around in the 2nd, like although he might not fall all the way to the back end of the second, but like what
They
I
got
feel
him
like
ranked 37th of the top players available.
so that's like early second round if he got picked in order.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm game for that. They need something because they lost Corey Davis on the offensive side.
Is there
Obviously,
another
there's-
receiver available? Let me see.
I mean, there's a couple Big Ten receivers. There's a guy out of Minnesota. I can't
There's
think of his name.
Terrence Marshall out of LSU.
There's a speedy guy out of Purdue who's kind of short though, but he's kind of like a speedy guy. Yeah, I don't know. Like, we're kind of getting into like team, like college teams. I don't really follow a whole lot, so it's kind of hard. Who do you think? I mean, just want to give them a receiver. I feel like they need a slot receiver because they have.
They need O-line, receiver, cornerback, tight end, safety. That's what they need, right? So
I feel like receiver here because I feel like there's a lot of good linemen you can pick up in the second round. So I feel like you go receiver here. You need someone to complement AJ Brown, who they still have on the outside. So you need a small, speedy slot receiver.
let's give him Marshall out of LSU that he filled in for Chase sitting down for a year.
Okay.
I think he's in the top 30, ranking wise. So 22 makes sense, right? We're on 22, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's not far off.
So just for the draft order I'm following, they actually predicted a trade here. Well, do you have the Jets here at 23? Because I'm having trouble reading.
Yes.
Okay. They already traded Seattle. Okay. I couldn't tell the way this is written. I couldn't tell if they was projecting a trade to Seattle or that's already happened. So we have the Jets on the board again. They still kind of need help everywhere, right? I'm just gonna let you call this. Go ahead. Who do you think they take?
I'm gonna say somebody that you are saving for something special, but I think Etienne goes here.
Is where you think? Okay.
Yeah, they need a running back badly.
Yeah, that's fair.
I
mean, they need to, if they keep Darnold. I mean, well, no, they traded.
No, they're going Zach Wilson at
right.
number 2.
I mean, yeah. I mean, so the other thing is maybe you go lineman here to protect your investment.
What do they say they need? Let's see. They say that they need quarterback, cornerback, O-line, edge, tight end. They're saying they don't need a running back. I disagree.
Maybe those are just the bigger needs. I mean, I kind of think the Jets need a little bit of everything, if we're being honest.
Well, they've had a pretty good offseason so far, right? Oklahoma State has a offensive lineman though, Jenkins. He's a big country boy. Can't ever go wrong there.
Yeah, I feel here you either go offensive line or maybe a receiver just to build that chemistry. Like, hey, here's your new number 1. But yeah, I feel you go offensive line. That's that. If you're going to draft a quarterback, there's no sense in drafting a quarterback and letting him get slaughtered, right? Like maybe Sam Darnold is still the starting quarterback in New York if he had a better line the last few years, play calling and weird head coaches aside, So if you keep him standing upright, maybe we have a different opinion on him and they're not trying to get like a 4th round pick for him or whatever it is you're trying to trade him for. So yeah, if we can give him an offensive line, that makes sense to me. I'm a true believer if you draft a quarterback, get that line built in front of him. Like, because we saw last year, Joe Burrow, right? They didn't address the line and he, got messed up. So, yeah. So I say go offensive line. That's what I would say.
All right.
Because that brings me to where ETN is going at number 24 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just makes sense. They've had the worst running game. They've lost a lot of defense. So the best way you can help shield a defense that's been kind of, weakened is a good running game to keep them off the field. This is the Cowboys strategy back when they drafted Zeke at number 4. The thought was, well, we don't need to address defense. The defense isn't as pressing if we can, run the ball and keep the team off the field. So I feel like ETN goes here. This is where I would see ETN going. Yeah, talk me out of it.
So if he's still there, I'm going to say absolutely. Where did I say Harris was going? Miami?
Yeah. Next time we do this, we should really write all this down.
We probably should. So I'm going to agree with you, right? Because the one draft I'm looking at has Harris going here, right? They have ETN and then Harris going 23 and 24, right? So if they're both, I think one of them goes a little bit sooner, right? And I don't know if I think the Jets need a running back, but I think they got a couple other holes as well. And I agree with your offensive line thought process. So yeah, and sorry, James Conner, you were a great story coming out of Pitt, and I really enjoy it. And I think kids should look up to you.
Maybe,
but
just to talk about Pittsburgh for a minute, I think the problem that Pittsburgh's kind of run into is they've had a lot of guys on offense that are great number twos, right? Like I don't want Juju, for example, being my number one receiver, but he's a great number two. I don't want Connor being my number one running back, but he's a great number two. He's a good change of pace guy, I'm just going to go. And, when Mark was on a couple weeks ago, he was talking about, it worked when we had Bell, and then Connor could come in and be, just be a change of pace, like pick a hole and go at the goal line, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of seems to be their problem on offense. They have a lot of number twos and no real number ones. And I think ETN here gives them that solid number one, helps, shield that defense a little bit by being able to move the ball in third and short and grind the clock and keep the defense off the field, because their defense lost a lot and they're not going to replace it all in one off season, especially with the salary cap problems they have. So I feel like you go for a way to shield it until you can build it up by, plus Big Ben's getting old. So having another running back for him to hand the ball off to protects him a little bit as well. So,
well, they got they're hurting right now too. Like Pittsburgh's in trouble, and I'll take this and you sit back and just ride it out because you can't stand them anyway, right? But like their offensive line is in shambles. You got basically, you replaced almost everyone up there except for what's his face, the Castro, who's old as fuck, right? You got Ben old, right? You haven't even signed James Conner right now, right? So like you have Benny Snell Jr. as your starting running back on paper right now. EDN fits in there very nicely, right? Like just makes a whole lot of sense. But they're receiving, Juju's not a number one. He's just not, and you have Claypool, you have Washington, you have Deontay, what's his last name? Johnson. I mean, you have 4 number 2 receivers, basically.
Claypool, I think we see Claypool kind of unravel a little bit, and that he was in a bar fight like a couple weeks ago. Like he just has, there just seems to be something about that guy where he's got the Juju thing where he's thinks a little bit more of himself than he actually is. And it would not and I know I'm talking about the Steelers, but it would not surprise me if something came up and he just was out of the league in the next 3 years. He just has that feel to him. Something about him, I don't know, doesn't seem like he's in it for the long run.
Like Kellen Winslow Jr.
Yeah. Classic. He thinks he's made it before he's made it because I don't know, because he's in the NFL and that's it. We're happy to be here and we're gonna act like we're owed it. And he just strikes me as that guy. Little guy. He's got the same little bits that Juju has, where you're just like, dude, you really need to be a lot better than you are to be dancing on other teams' logos during pregame. Like you do. Sorry. Like nothing against you. You're a better athlete than I am, but you're not good enough to do what you do yet. So, ETN,
let's just make that happen. He goes,
ETN. I rather, really in my perfect world, they go offensive lineman, but ETN just makes no sense for them. So
that brings us to the Jags, and I'm going to steal your thunder here and agree with you. Since they've taken Trevor Lawrence number one, they need an offensive tackle right here.
yeah.
You need to get an offensive lineman to protect that dude.
So my only caveat to this is at this point in the draft, do we still have any offensive linemen left that are worth? Because they're also going to come up at the top of the second round again, right? So
Yeah.
are there any linemen worth? Because I feel like now we're kind of getting into the reaching territory where you could pick something else up here to pair with your quarterback, like a receiver or something like that. And then because you're coming back up again in like less than 10 picks, right? So like I feel like there's enough linemen left to where maybe you grab a top flight wide receiver, and then you come back, you come back and get someone get a lineman at the top of the second. In fact, the mock drafts I do, not to steal their thunder, but they have him actually taking the receiver out of Florida that you were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know I just one of the big long thing about protecting your investments, but they have another, the Jets were a few picks earlier. There's still a good quality offensive lineman. And you look at the teams behind them, you got the Browns, the Ravens, like no one behind them is really going to be drafting an offensive lineman, right? So there's no one like maybe the Chiefs, but there's no one behind them that you're really worried about a bunch of offensive linemen going off the board. So I feel grabbing one here is a little bit of a reach when they're coming immediately back up in less than 10 picks.
There's a couple guys right here in Pennsylvania. There's Patrick Jones from Pitt. He's a defensive end, and I don't know how to pronounce the dude's name from Penn State, but like the Penn State players put on a show at Pro Day, man. They are just athletic beasts, all of them, right? And it's OWEH, OWA, or whatever, however you want to pronounce that. But like he did like a 4.5 40, 4.4 something 40. His shuttle run was quick as shit. He was strong as a motherfucker. He did like 24, 26, reps at 225. He had a 40-inch vertical. Like he's a freak, and like, I mean, I'm pretty certain he's in the top 50 of ranking of players. I think he's somewhere in the 30s, but they could do that here too,
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a lot of receivers in the second round. I think there's a lot of receivers in the second round, but for like, I don't think you can pass up a defensive end right here. Or if there is an offensive tackle, I don't think you can pass that up either. But
I feel like defense isn't a bad play because all the teams behind you at this point, right, with the exception of maybe the Ravens, need defensive help.
Yeah.
The Ravens and the Bills are the only teams past here where and even the Ravens need defensive help, but I feel like wide receiver is the bigger need for them than defense. So yeah, I mean, so maybe you grab the defensive player here just because he's not going to be there. Although again, the Jags are I still feel like 7-8 picks. I guess my thing with the defense is like with them just because they're basically starting from scratch, right? So they got their quarterback, get him a weapon or two and a line. Like that should be your thing. Get him a receiver to gel with and a lineman. And I'm pretty sure at this point you look at who's behind them, like unless someone trades up from the second round into the late first, there's no one really you're worried about other than maybe Kansas City taking a lineman. So I'm with you on defense. I just feel like if you draft your quarterback, you protect him and you get him and the Jaguars have done this before. When they drafted Bortles, their next pick was a wide receiver to go with him. So, I mean, now that obviously didn't pan out so well, but it is what it is. So I'll let you have final call. I've kind of said my piece on it. What do you see them taking? What would you like to see them take? What do you think is the best pick for them?
I offensive tackle, right? I just think, there's still some quality players up there to take them now. They're going to be picking again in 6 or 7 slots. So
and you can use my own argument against me. There's not a team behind them that, with the exception of the Ravens, that are going to grab a receiver, right? So same argument you can use against me that, hey, they can get their receiver in the second round. So yeah, no, that's fair. I think we're in agreement that offense. We'll just say lineman just to move on to the pick we've been waiting to talk about. Your NFL draft hosts and 2022 Super Bowl contender, Cleveland Browns. Can you just say that Super Bowl contender, Cleveland Browns? Can you say it once? I want to hear someone else say it. I've been saying it a lot recently. Super Bowl, Super Browns.
I'm not really sold on that just yet. They're still the Browns, man. Oof.
What else do you need to see from the Browns? They got the best running game. They got the best line. They got a quarterback that fits the system. I'm not going to say he's the best quarterback in the league, but he fits their system. They got receivers. They went out and got secondary help. Come on, say it with
they need an edge rusher right here. The Super Bowl hopefuls. We'll say that. Super Bowl contenders. They got a big mountain to climb, man. But I think
just off the record before we get real into it, my fear with this Browns team is it only works right now because Chubb, Mayfield, like all these guys are on rookie contracts, which do they have like, I think there's like this season, maybe next season.
Yeah.
Or like the last two of their rookie contracts. That's why they didn't give Baker an extension, because our team only works right now because you guys are on your rookie contracts. So, next year they're going to have to do something with the receiver core. They can't be paying $35 million when they got to pay Chubb and Baker. Hopefully maybe we get lucky and Baker's like, you know what? He goes to Tom Brady route and says, just pay me 15 for the next 10 years and we'll see what happens. But that being said, I agree. They need someone opposite Garrett. But we kind of talked about this a little bit beforehand. I have seen some instances where Micah Parsons slides this far, but just for the sake of this, I'm not going to go that route. There's a linebacker out of Tulsa, Collins, who has been compared to Brian Urlacher. And I like that. I like that. You can get a good rusher. I mean, Bud Dupree Dupree's not an end, is he? Am I thinking Bud Dupree's an end?
He's an end. He played. He's a linebacker in a 3-4 scheme.
Okay, so
he's an edge rusher.
I mean, you can have a linebacker. Because we already kind of replaced our top tackler, so get a ferocious linebacker. I like him. He seems to be one of those guys that just fits. He's a hard worker. He's got that like blue collar mentality about him. I know a lot of people are saying they should go edge, but to complement Garrett, but there's still some edges out there in free agency. Clowney is still out there. There's still some other pieces we can fill through free agency. I'd like to see them solidify the linebacker core a little bit more. That's just my personal opinion. The mock draft I'm looking at has them taking a defensive end, but I think linebacker, fingers crossed. I'm not going to pretend it's definitely going to happen, but I've seen rumors that Micah Parsons could slide because of character stuff. If he's there, definitely grab him. But I'd be happy with the guy out of Tulsa. That's who I'd honestly like to see. But then again, I'm not getting paid the big bucks to make these calls. So you think they should take an edge? Just go.
What edge guys is your mock have them taken?
Jalen Phillips out of Miami. They have them taking one of the Miami guys, which I would not be upset with. Don't get me wrong.
I think Jalen Phillips. I think the Penn State dude might still be there. You never know what these teams are going to do.
Well, I think a combination of either the dude from Penn State or either of the Miami defensive ends will still be here at this point. So they'll have their pick of them. And see, the thing that's interesting with the Browns now is, and I can't even think, I'm blanking on our GM's name. He was in Philly and now he's our GM. He seems like a guy that does kind of what's expected. Like we're going to either take a defensive end or a linebacker. I'd like to see them. I'd like to see that linebacker, but yeah, I'm not opposed to them taking one of those defensive ends. Someone of them, because whoever is a defensive end on this team is going to get, they're going to get single coverage a lot because Garrett's going to pull all the double teams. So, You just need a speed guy with a high motor, and any of those guys, yeah, the two Miami edges, or the dude from Penn State fill that perfectly. So I wouldn't be upset with that either.
All right. Pick one.
I'm
giving you this pick.
Well, just since it's my pick, then we're gonna go with they're taking Collins. I like Collins. I'm sold on it. I feel like we can get we can always trade up and get another defensive end if it comes that desperate because we have plenty of ammunition later on. And also, like I said, there's a couple guys still out there. Who's the Eagle we just got? Vontae, what's his name? There's an Eagle we just got, and he's already trying to recruit people to Cleveland. I love it. He was on your defensive line last year. He was an interior lineman. You're gonna make me Google this. Hold on, because I want your thoughts on him. Hold on. Browns free agents. Dead air as we quickly search.
Dead air.
Where is it? He's
let's
see. Yeah, he was one of your interior defensive linemen.
Malik Jackson.
Yeah, there it is.
So, I mean, I think Malik Jackson actually was a Baltimore Raven at one point in time as well. He was hurt a lot for us last year, but like that's not, saying much coming out of the Eagles system with their stellar, strength and conditioning that they got going on. So, I mean, I think he's a good player when he plays. I think it's probably B+ signing. I think that's a good interior defensive player for you guys. Absolutely. Doesn't solve your rush. Doesn't solve your edge. I mean, doesn't solve that at all. But, like you said, there's Clowney still out there. You signed Clowney for a 1-year deal. You're pretty golden right there.
I mean,
he's a dirty player. He fits in.
Hey, man, whatever it takes to win at this point. So that being said, man, Philadelphia's going to call us dirty. Okay, whatever, bro. Whatever.
What Philly players play dirty?
What Philly players don't play dirty? You gonna tell me? I mean, I guess Ertz didn't play dirty, but I mean, if Alshon Jeffrey didn't play dirty, he definitely he was grumpy. He fits Philadelphia.
He's just a weird dude. He had a great season, the Super Bowl run. I don't even want to say great. He looks older than he is, right? Like he's only, I think he's still 29, maybe 30, right? Which I thought he was like 33.
I think the NFL ages you, though. I mean, you're out there. It's just the whole mentality. I think it's just stress. It just ages you. So that's on the Browns. They're taking a linebacker. I don't care what anyone else tells me. That brings us to the Baltimore Ravens. They need a lot of defensive help, believe it or not, which is kind of funny because they're one of those teams, those like aura teams where we just assume their defense is good because it's Baltimore. But honestly, we saw in their game against the Browns, they gave up 45. So I think what they do here is they address their one glaring need on offense, and they go receiver. I think, they've been trying to sign a receiver for whatever reason, and they can't. So I think they go because I believe they offered Juju more money. Juju took less money to go back to the Steelers.
Juju signed for like $3 to go back.
Right. To go back to the Steelers instead of taking he was offered like decent money from the Ravens.
I think a 2-year $20 million. So he was offered more money from the Ravens. So and
I understand why they're having problems because they're an obvious run heavy offense. You're not going to get a type flight receiver that's going to go there and watch his numbers drop. And then, you let him go in 2 years. He's not going to get because he's going to get based off of what he did in Baltimore. So I feel they go receiver here. It's their biggest need on offense. It's really
even though they signed Watkins, you think?
What'd you say? Say it again.
Even though they signed Sammy Watkins, you think they're going to go first round receiver?
I mean, is Sammy Watkins the number one to you? I don't think he is.
No.
Yeah.
Are you getting a number one receiver at 27?
I think you can get a receiver better than Sammy Watkins at 27.
Okay.
This year in particular is just well, you know, I saw something on Cowherd, and I feel like it's kind of the same with all this. Like this year's deep at receiver, right? Well, Cowherd said, okay, here are the 5 quarterbacks from the 2017 draft, right? And he said, and then he lined up all the, you know, the top 5 quarterbacks from this year's draft. He's like, who's going to be the Josh Rosen? Because there's going to be one, right? And we don't fault any one of the teams that are going to take a quarterback, though, for grabbing a quarterback. So, I mean, by the way, that answer to that question is Mac Jones. He's the Josh Rosen of this group. Anyway,
let me ask you a question since you said that, right? We all said that, you know, Justin Fields or Trey Lance is going to San Francisco. Do they really trade up to take Mac Jones?
I hope not. Not for what they gave up. No, they don't. Because
you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think so. There's no way, because they were what, 12 before they traded up?
Yeah.
Mac Jones was going to be there at 12. Like,
yeah.
you don't draft, you don't give up. They gave up way too much to move up to draft Mac Jones. Like that, like to do that reeks of Trubisky. That reeks of when the Bills took Emmanuel Sanders at 16 and he was like a 3rd round projected pick. Yeah. Like, it's one thing to have a position of need or have a guy you want and go after him, right? It's another thing to give up the farm for a guy you could have gotten where you were to begin with. If they take Mac Jones, even okay, and I will even preface it with this: even if Mac Jones turns out to be the next Joe Montana, right? You still don't give up half the farm when he's more than likely going to be there at 12. They could have gotten him at 12 without trading everything they traded to get to 3.
And I know we already got our picks in for earlier, but I think somehow, some way, New England gets in the mix to get Mac Jones.
I think they're going to get him at 15. I think they are in the mix. I think he's going to be there at 15. I think out of all the quarterbacks, like it's either going to be, I mean, so number 1 is definitely Trevor Lawrence. Number 2 is the kid out of BYU. Number 3, in my opinions, the guy out of North Dakota State. So then it's going to be Justin Fields or Mac Jones for the Patriots at 15.
Justin Fields will not make it past Carolina.
Okay. So
just not going to happen.
All right, but still, so the top 3 picks are quarterbacks. Carolina's 8, and then, you know, who takes a quarterback after that, right? Like, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the 49ers, unless they were convinced, but even then trading up to 3 seems absurd to me, but like, unless they were convinced that Carolina would take Mac Jones, you know, I don't think you trade up like that to take Mac, not to 3. You trade up to 7. You find you could have gone up to 7 and not given up nearly as much. So yeah, if they trade up that much to take Mac Jones, like I would like to submit my resume to be GM of the 49ers because I can make those kind of decisions for a lot less money than John Lynch.
Speaking of which, can we come up with like $300 million to buy 15% of the Chargers? Because there's 4 kids that each have 15%, so 60% total. The four kids of the owner of the Chargers. So, but one of them wants out, right? So it's like based on valuation, it's like $300 million.
Ooh,
be part of the Chargers.
I mean, I'll play the lotto. That's a good solid lotto win. That's not like, I mean, we're talking about $300 million, like it's, you know, around the corner, but like it's
better than $2.5 billion. You know, like to buy a football team outright.
I think the Chargers is a team we could all agree on because they have no rivalries with any of our teams. Like we could come out here in Chargers gear every like. I mean, the Chargers could acquire this. This could be the Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast brought to you by the Chargers. We could totally, yeah,
and we could absolutely fill the board with everybody from the group.
I mean, hell, just you, like, I mean, you, me, Gorky, and Atticus. If we just put in. And got it, like we just doubled their fan base just out of, you know. Crap, man, that $300 million. I feel like we could go fund me that, right?
I think we can.
Like, what would we give? Like, because you know how you do the GoFundMe's is you get, so it's like what, like you pitch in $10, we'll give you a cap when we're like, because I feel like we can just give stuff away, right? If we're 15% owners, we can give people merch.
Yeah.
So, like maybe an autographed jersey if you give us 1,000, like. like a Herbert autographed jersey. Maybe like 5,000. We'll give you a picture with him.
We'll
Never
let
mind
Herbert
that
take your daughter to her prom or something. Like it'll be all right.
Daughter to prom for 10,000. Sorry, Herbert. We're already pimping you out. We don't even own the team yet. We're pimping you out. But I can get behind that. We'd have to relocate to San Diego to
They play in LA
watch
now,
our
man.
or LA. That's right. Well, oof. That's the thing. So then we'd have to aggressively take over the rest of the team so we can move them back to San Diego where they belong. But that's a whole nother story, right?
Yeah.
So the Ravens, just to get this back on track, the Ravens are taking a receiver. Whichever one. I've lost track of who's still available. The mock draft I'm looking at has them taking Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss.
Yep.
Honestly, at this point, he's as good as any other. So
As
Good
far
for-
as rankings go, I think they got him. Where do they rank him? I
mean,
agree on
according-
Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss, but he's out of the top 50, I think.
no, they have him as the 43rd on the one I'm reading. I mean, it's a bit of a reach here, but it's their biggest glaring things. They have him as the 7th best receiver, and we've given away 6 wide receivers already. So, I mean, position rank wise, this is where you take him. Because they're not going to change their defensive round with one pick. They can alter their offense with one pick. So,
All right. I'm good with that.
all right. So next we're at the Saints, rounding out the first round here, 28. A lot of question marks. They've lost a lot. They're kind of in salary cap hell.
They just cut Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins, so they need a cornerback.
They let go of Eli Apple too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Or they let him go. They let him walk, something like that. So, yeah, cornerback, anywhere on the defense really for them.
Wide receiver, because what do they have beyond Jenkins or Michael Thomas? I mean,
they let Sanders go. Yeah, I mean they're in a tough spot because they're kind of like they're basically in the same spot that the Steelers are in. They're just in a better position because they actually have some like better players than the Steelers on offense. I don't think they have quite the question mark at quarterback that the Steelers are in a much more precarious position. But they kind of need help everywhere. Maybe you just go for the best available at this point. The draft I'm looking at has them taking an edge. They actually have them taking the other Miami edge. I don't know if both Miami, assuming the Browns in real life, I know they didn't take one in this draft, but realistically, they take it. I just don't see one of those guys falling this far. But I mean, really, they could go anywhere on defense. They need help in the secondary. They need help. They need help on the line. They're pretty set on offense, right? Like their line's not bad. They have Kamara. They have Thomas. I don't think that you need to draft a second receiver here for them anyway. And I'm actually what's the quarterback's name? Not Crab Legs, but the other guy who's
Not famous Jameis. Taysom Hill, man.
Taysom Hill. I think he's going to be better than we think. Again, I'm not saying he's Joe Montana. I'm not even saying he's going to be top 5 in the league, but I think he's going to be a solid replacement. The only knock against him is he's a little bit older, right? Isn't he like 30? Which is relatively young for a quarterback now, but
I think that he doesn't look 30 though, man.
But I think that's the thing. Luckily we have the power of Google. Hold on one second. How old is Taysom Hill? He spells his name all funny too. He is exactly 30 years old.
Okay.
He'll be 30. He'll actually be 31 by the time next season starts. So real quick, just for fun, 30 years ago, What year is that?
30 years ago, 1971.
Right. Yeah, no, 1990. That's when Taysom Hill. That's when Taysom Hill was born, 1990, and he's in his 30s. I just feel old. So just because they made me feel old, they're just going to take. We'll just go with. They're going to take an edge because I don't feel like talking about it anymore. Next, we're on Green Bay. They need defensive help, obviously. I think they could definitely they need to help on the front seven. They need because that. Let's just assume their offense.
They need a receiver. I agree with. I watched Corky's broadcast. They need a receiver, and they should probably their first 3 picks should be a fucking receiver, right? Like you have nobody.
You know what? Hold on, Liesel. She's got her headphones on. She can't hear me. I feel like we should get her over for this pick. Hold on, let me go get her real quick. Green Bay's pick. You want any input on this? Because we had a guy in the group go here. Come here real quick. Just come here real quick.
I kind of can't. What's up?
Well, Green Bay's pick. We had a guy in the group go off about.
You have arguably one of the top 3 greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, and it's kind of like their front office says, "Thank you, Aaron, because you're fucking awesome, but go fuck yourself. We're not going to give you any receivers."
She's agreeing with you. I mean, they re-signed the running back.
Hey, you need some targets, so we're going to get you a backup QB. And the entire Green Bay Packer Nation said, "What the fuck is this?"
Well, then not only that, there were some good receivers in free agency. They didn't. I don't even know if they didn't even try. Maybe they just apparently slept through.
They could have gone out and gotten Juju. You know what I mean?
They could have gotten Juju. They could have gotten Will Fuller. They could have gotten any number of players to complement the one offensive weapon they have outside of Aaron Rodgers.
If we're talking offensive weapon, there's that wide receiver who's real fast out of Purdue. That wouldn't be the worst pick. Speed.
He's still available too, based on
he is. Rondell Moore from Purdue.
That's it. I wouldn't hate a linebacker, but I want it in the first round. Obviously our defense could use some work. We've gotten better on the corners over the last couple of years. It was real bad under Capers.
Got Rashad Bateman out of Ohio State.
Yeah. I would also even say Christian Waller, the D-line out of Alabama.
Man, she's more prepared for this than we are, and she's not even paying attention. I mean, the mock draft I'm following has them taking the linebacker out of Notre Dame here. She's, the resident Packers expert doesn't sound like she'd be completely upset with that pick. That being said, I'm kind of on throw Aaron Rodgers a freaking bone. What are we doing here?
I don't think they're gonna. I think that, if that linebacker's still there, who's one of the top 20 players ranking in the draft, right? If he's there, what do they pick at 28?
28, yeah.
Now,
yeah.
one last final thought,
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to it.
29.
Do you think the Packers will trade up to get a chance to get Jalen Waddle or Jamar Chase?
They're not going to get Chase.
They're not going to get no.
They're going to if they would trade up for him.
No, and here's why.
They're not going to have enough to get him.
They're not going to have enough. And here's the thing: the Packers can't give up picks to move up because being in Green Bay, it's hard to attract people. NFL players don't want to go hang out in Green Bay. Sorry, I hate to. I know you're from Wisconsin, you love it, but
no, I don't entirely disagree. But I think that what player isn't going to want to play again, with Rodgers?
Well, apparently, none of the wide receivers that were free agents this year.
Like Kenny Galladay, who signed with the Giants.
Do you want to go play? I think the biggest question then is: do you want to go play in Green Bay and play Lambeau and play in the same stadium? Where Curly was in a different one, but Vince Lombardi, or then there's Cleveland,
who's a Super Bowl contender, and doesn't have to deal with the.
Yeah, you tell yourself that sometimes.
They are. Hey, real quick, just because we were talking about it earlier, for the 17th game, we kind of came up with a thing where they should do a proximity rivalry, right? So like Cleveland will play Detroit because they're in a different division. We don't play them a lot, but it makes sense for a 17th game to just every year that should be who we play on the 17th game. If Green Bay was to pick a team, just out of curiosity, who would you have them play? Obviously, it can't be the Bears because you already play them. Can't be the Vikings, your normal rivals.
Proximity.
Like someone that's relatively close, or just another team that you'd like to see Green Bay play every year, like as like another natural rivalry.
I mean, if I want an easy win, I'm gonna take the Bengals because
The Bengals.
I don't think the Colts are too bad.
That would actually be good. Colts, Packers. Wait,
I like that rivalry.
Yeah. I mean, who are the Colts really rivals with? They just play football games. They don't have any rivals. So, yeah, we can give them a rival in the pack. They both are storied franchises, have had Hall of Fame quarterbacks. That fits. I like it. Good call.
Thanks, guys.
Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, back to me. So, yeah, so based on our resident experts pick, we're going to go with Moore out of Purdue. We're gonna appease the masses and give Aaron Rodgers a bone here. Yeah, I like that. So next we have the Bills. Bills are another one of those teams where they're kind of like the Browns. They're on an upward trajectory. They kind of are set in a lot of different ways. They picked up Sanders, so I feel like they're set on offense. I don't know where they would go on offense.
So do you believe Singleton or Singletary is the answer at running back? Because I like the kid out of North Carolina here.
Okay.
I like him a lot. You know, I mean, is it a reach at 30? Probably not.
Right. I mean, is he the number 2 running back in the?
He's the number 3 running back available.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Because we already gave Harris to someone. Yeah. So we already gave Harris to someone. We gave ETN to someone. So yeah, this makes sense for them to. Yeah, that works. So the number 3. So yeah, it's not a huge reach. And when you're drafting at this end of at this time you can draft for need versus maybe best available or what makes sense because you're only like the Bills are like they're kind of the right 1 or 2 pieces away from like being in the Super Bowl. So the only thing I would say to that is you can't go wrong on defense in the AFC because you do have to go through the Chiefs at some point, some way, some shape, some form. You're going to be playing the Chiefs. So having another defensive player, but then again, running back does what we talked about. It keeps the Chiefs offense off of the field. So yeah, I'm game with that. So the kid out of North Carolina. Speaking of the Chiefs, that brings us to the Chiefs. What do you do with the Chiefs? I mean, they're deep. I want to say deep.
They need offensive line.
And we kind of touched on that earlier. Yeah, they're a team that could use an offensive lineman. They also, I mean, the only other thing is maybe some defense, just because their defense is opportunistic, but their defense also obviously like got lit up in the Super Bowl. They got kind of exposed a little bit in the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Did they really? Like, I mean, it looks like they did, but like they didn't get lit up. Brady threw for 220 yards. Well,
yeah, that's because they had a 20-point lead going into halftime. Like, so yeah, Brady threw like 6 times in the second half. But then again, I mean, Patrick Mahomes was running for his life too. So yeah, you protect your quarterback, right? So this was the team we talked about earlier. This is the only other team when we were talking about, I think it was Jacksonville, that we could see them taking offensive linemen. So maybe you go here. This is a default offensive line draft. Just for the sake of argument, the mock draft I'm following has them taking the kid out of Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You protect your. I mean, they've invested how like Patrick Mahomes makes my annual salary every 15 hours, so I feel like you should protect that investment.
Yeah, I would say that's what I would say.
Patrick Mahomes, at the time we've done this podcast, has made 1/15 of my salary. So, and I don't make peanuts. I make a decent amount. So, solidly middle class. We'll say that. So yeah, that brings us up to the champs who return everybody. The mock draft hasn't taken a running back. That kind of disappoints me because I don't know why they don't like Rojo. He's a good running back. They don't seem to want to like let him be the lead running back.
They don't need to take a running back here. You know,
Yeah.
they Rojo is fine, and Fournette got born again. So, and
Yeah.
neither one of them are old. So I think they're fine there. The mock draft I'm looking at has them taking your boy, Zaven Collins.
I don't want to see that.
I think they need another edge rusher there as well. Like if you're, it's hard to say.
I feel like edge, they're kind of old, right? Like they have Pierre-Paul, who's got to be up there. I feel like Pierre-Paul's been in the league for exactly 45 years. So watch him only be like 28 somehow, but I feel like he's been in the league forever.
Yeah. I agree.
So yeah, edge, they have him taking Collins. The draft I'm looking at has him taking a running back. I don't see that. Yeah, they have running backs. Like I don't think you draft your third string running back in the first round anyway. Unless they're just going to let Rojo walk, but why would you do that? I don't get. I that's the one thing that perplexes me. I mean, I can't question it too much because they obviously won a Super Bowl, but like Rojo's not bad. Like I'm not saying he's all world, but I just feel like they don't put some respect on his name. Tampa Bay, he's a good back. Quit filling it. Quit going after running backs. Let Rojo lead you to the promised land. Yeah, you see that Collins if he's available. Another linebacker if he's available. They can't go wrong with edge. They're actually their secondary held up surprisingly well against the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't know if that was just because they had 2 weeks to prepare for him and it's one game, but
or the fact that Mahomes was running for his life.
True.
And their linebacking core was playing balls out. Like you mentioned earlier, defense not that important. Like the Rams' best defense didn't make it, right? I think the best defense for the last 6 games was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just, they clicked all cylinders at the right time, and they lit them up.
Right. But before they got there, I mean, you wouldn't say they were the best like during the regular season, right?
I'd say the last 4 games of the regular season.
Okay.
Right. I'll pull it up right now. Like they just turned it on at the right time. Let's see. They certainly they didn't shut down the Packers, but the Packers were a second receiver away from being able to win that game, though. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
which we've wisely given them in this draft. So there we go. We're just fixing everyone's problems except the Eagles because they have too many.
Shut the fuck up. I'm telling you, man, weird things have happened. Like they're getting a healthy offensive line back, which might be like we're gonna see what Hurts can do, man. It's really all it like. I'm not a believer in Hurts yet. I think it was a mistake to trade Wentz. But I could be wrong. I could be completely off base, and it's not because I think he sucks. It's because like he didn't look impressive. Like he had some flashes last year. He brought a whole nother energy. He looks like a leader, but he was also running for his life. You know what I mean? So put an offensive line in front of him. Does he play like he did it at Oklahoma, where he threw for 4,000 and ran for another 2? Like that's insane numbers.
Well, that's Big East or Big 12 numbers. That's what happens there.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
Texas,
look at their quarterbacks. Look
right.
at the quarterbacks and what they're doing. Like, Baker's playing not phenomenally, but he's playing pretty good.
That's future Super Bowl champion Baker Mayfield you're talking about. Put some respect.
Kyler Murray, like they're but the thing that all three of them have for the most part is an offensive line.
Right. How many you might not know this offhand, but how many years left did Wentz have on his contract with the Eagles? Was this his last? Were we going into his last year?
No, man, I think he had 2 or 3.
Yeah, see, this is what I don't understand. Why didn't, like, if I'm the Eagles, right? I let Wentz come back one more year. See where they are. Like, now I get they kind of fudge things by starting Hurts, but like you said, the whole line was hurt. Like, I feel like you give one more year. Like, here's the thing. It would have harmed them nonetheless to have Wentz back for one more year, right? Reload the offense around him, get some good playmakers in there, let the line come back, load up on offense around him, see where he takes you. And if, then if you're still having problems, if you still finish with 6 wins next year, okay, then you trade him. He's got 2 years, but my point is, like, maybe if you load it up, maybe at least end up getting something better for him than what they got. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like I don't understand why they felt the need. It just seemed weird. The whole thing seems weird. I feel like someone slept with someone's wife. Like, there's just more to it than we know. There has to be, right? Like, someone did something to someone, and yeah, there's no way that
he's an asshole, and he tries to micromanage the team. This was beyond Doug Peterson. I think Doug Peterson's gone because of Howie, not because of Wentz. I think he's gone because of Howie. I think Howie interferes too much, and I think the nail in the coffin for him was, I'm going to pull Carson, or I'm going to pull Hurts. I mean, I'm going to pull Hurts and put Nate Sudafed in. He's like, fuck it. I don't give a shit. I'm doing it. Fire me. And he got fired.
Did Peterson get another job?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Someone will pick him up, but I think they fucked Wentz when they drafted Hurts. They didn't do anything. So he's playing balls out, Super Bowl year, blows an ACL on a play that he still stayed in the game and threw a touchdown, right? Stayed in the game, threw a touchdown with a busted knee. So then he's out, right? Foles wins the Super Bowl, and they kept Foles for the next year as a backup as well, and that just fucked everything up. So then he gets hurt again because he had that back issue, and then they trade Foles. Now it's Wentz. Wentz comes back, plays a full 16, but he's throwing to practice squad dudes. Everybody was hurt, right? And he threw for 4,000 yards, first Eagle quarterback to do that ever. So there's that. And then he comes back this last year, and he's still throwing to practice squad players, and his entire offensive line and second offensive line gets hurt.
It's interesting when you put it like that, because, like, so I know in the group, like, they joke about how often Wentz gets injured and stuff like that, but I almost kind of wonder, like, okay, how much is it that he's just injury prone, and how much is it like maybe he never fully recovers, and he, like, because it sounds like it's like I've said before, like when they first traded him, I said it feels like for whatever reason they never made, like, outside of like maybe the first 2 years he was on the squad, it was never Wentz's team. It never felt like they were like, yeah, man, you're doing good, but okay, so he, like, Patrick Mahomes had half a good season and they gave him $500 million, and you know what I'm saying, like Baker Mayfield had a couple questionable seasons, and they're like, okay, we're going to give you good offensive line, we're going to go do all this stuff for you, right? Wentz, it just never felt like it was his team. And I almost wonder, like, maybe he didn't like, maybe he rushed himself back, right? Because, he gets injured. He watches Foles win the Super Bowl. So he rushes himself back to do that. What the Eagles should have done, honestly, is after that Super Bowl, trade Nick Foles. That should have been the play. They were never going to get more for him than they were going to get right then and there.
No, they franchised him for $20 million. Is
right. You franchise. No, you trade him or let him walk. Like, thanks for everything. Here's a bonus on your way out the door. We'll give you a good letter of recommendation. But after that, like, thanks for the Super Bowl. We can't have you here though, because we have Wentz, and we can't have this. We can't put like.
Yeah.
And so Carson maybe comes back too early because he's worried about his job. Gets injured again. Like, I just, like I said, it was just weird. Like to draft a quarterback like Wentz, who I think is good, and never let him feel like like you're treating him like he's your number one. It just like he clearly in his draft class. When did he come out? 2016. He was the year before Baker, right?
15? 16. Yeah.
16. He's clearly the better draft pick in that class, right? Like I take if you go do that again, I feel like you take him over Goff hands down.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the Browns, you guys traded the Browns for that pick, so
we sure did.
He could have been a Brownie, and we would have treated him better. We would have treated him better.
Sure would have. I think he's lights it up in Indianapolis.
If Wentz, if the Cleveland Browns had an MVP quarterback, a quarterback that had any kind of MVP season, he would never buy a drink in Cleveland. We would definitely, like, if the Browns had Aaron Rodgers, we would definitely treat him like the god on earth he is. We wouldn't be sitting here drafting quarterbacks in the late first round. That I know that much.
It's insane to me. It drives me bananas. And if they fuck up the 12th, I'll tell you what I want to happen at number 12. Trade it back. Get more draft equity. Trade it back. And if you're gonna trade Ertz, get him fucking gone now too. Get him gone. Just call it a day. Maybe trade Ertz and the 12 to Atlanta for the number 6 or 5 or whatever they got, 4. Or to Denver or to somebody. Like just pull the trigger, call it a day. But I don't know. I think as long as Frank Reich can get Carson's head right, because he's got to be a little fucked up in the head right now. After all, Philly fucked him up. But we don't. McNabb's another story, right? Like, I mean, McNabb was a great regular season quarterback. He just could not get it done in the playoffs. Ever.
What were his number? I mean, his numbers weren't bad in the playoffs, were they? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't pay. Like, I know who Donovan McNabb is, but I didn't spend a lot of time analyzing his like playoff record. Right? He wasn't bad in the playoffs, was he? Like, there comes a point like that. I never understand why we talk about quarterbacks in this context in the NFL, because more than any other game, right? Like, more than any other thing, like in the NBA, you just need a superstar and you're going to win some games. Because they're going to get calls. There's just stuff, they play to the stars in the NBA. The NFL, you need a team. So like you can have the greatest whoever ever at whatever position, but if that's all you got, you're not going to do anything. Look at Barry Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Let's
answer that question.
Okay.
So 59% completion percentage, 24 TDs, 17 interceptions, 80 rating. That's his career in the playoffs. Not good.
Not great, but I mean, okay, so the one thing I'll say to that is this is also 10-ish years ago, right? When was his last playoff game?
11 years ago.
Okay, so 10, 11 years ago. Accurate QB play, that's like a now thing. Like Brett Favre was the MVP then, and he was giving up equal touchdowns to interceptions every year. Fun fact. You want to hear a fun fact about Brett Favre real quick? Back in the day, I worked at a sports apparel store. It's called Lid's Locker Room now. At the time, it was called Sports Fanatic. Anyway, I worked at a sports apparel store, and I met a girl who was real into the Packers. You know how I tried to impress her? I threatened to burn all of Brett Favre's jerseys that we had in the store. Other fun fact, she's sitting on the couch over there right now. So apparently the long con worked.
Okay.
Hi, Liesl. Anyway, we're just letting it all. This is what happens when the podcast moves to Friday night. We just get all these fun stories. But my point is, I mean, and it's hard. The thing that I feel when you just look at stats like that, like, okay, 24 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, it loses context. Because how many games was he behind in because the defense gave up however many points? And so now he's just throwing the ball a lot more. I mean, again, at the same time, Brett Favre wasn't that far removed from being the MVP, and he was giving up as many touchdowns as he was, or he's throwing as many touchdowns as he was interceptions. So, I mean, there wasn't a
in Philly from 2000 to 2004 when they actually went to the Super Bowl, right? Those 5 seasons, he had a top 5 defense 4 out of 5 of those years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what were his numbers like those years, though? Right? What
They were decent. I mean, he never threw a lot of interceptions, right? So like he played well. You know, they're on par with his career numbers in the playoffs, with the exception of touchdowns, right? Like his touchdown ratio was always pretty good. His rating about the same. You know, like I mean, he just, you know, the year they went to the Super Bowl was his best year by far. By far, 31-8. You know, 100 QBR, 104 actually.
I mean, and if we're being honest, that was the year where his number 2 receiver was Freddie Mitchell, right? So, I mean,
and his number 1 receiver was Terrell Owens, who had a monster Super Bowl coming back from a broken leg, and Donovan's thrown up in the huddle. You know, to Donovan's, to his credit, though, they had the lead with 5 minutes left in the game. They just couldn't stop Tom Brady. Couldn't stop him. So,
yeah, I mean, it's just weird because, like, Tom Brady's interesting because I feel like Tom Brady's one of those guys where he just got lucky, that not lucky, but like the game changed since Tom Brady's been playing. And it went from gunslinger style quarterbacks a la Brett Favre, et cetera, to accurate quarterbacks like him and Drew Brees. Because like at the same time, like we talk about quarterbacks playing till their late 30s now, like it's commonplace, but it's really not, right? Like that wasn't a thing 10 years ago. Like they like I remember when who was it? Steve DeBerg, like he came into a game and he's like 34 or something like that. And that was like everyone was like 30, like that was the headline on SportsCenter, 34-year-old Steve DeBerg. Like the only other guy was like Doug Flutie, who played into his early 40s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a thing back then. Like, you know, all the greats like Warren Moon, Joe Montana, Steve Young, they all retired in their early 30s. So it's just a different thing.
I mean, even now, like how old's Ben? You know, Eli's already done. You know, Eli and Ben got old quick.
Well, you know, the thing about
they both got drafted in 2004.
Right. Well, I mean, that's 16 years, 17 years.
Yeah, but they're the outlier for that, you know, like,
yeah,
you know, it's not Tom Brady territory. It's not.
Well, Tom Brady, I mean, Tom
Brady's
Brady's because like we've talked about in the past, Tom Brady, like, I mean, his diet is insane. I mean, that dude is meticulous about like the way he takes care of his body, which, you know, he should be. I mean, Russell Wilson's kind of getting on that train where I think something came out where he's paying like $1 million a year to like a dietitian and a personal trainer or something like that to take care of him. Like, I mean, hey, so it is what it is. But yeah, any last thoughts about the Knicks or anything, just so we can see if Atticus is listening?
Let's see what that final score was. Give you a last second thought on the Knicks.
Are they got to be dropping in the, they're not 4th in the East anymore, are they?
They shouldn't be. Yeah, 99-86 they finished that game. So they made a little late run to make it seem close. And they're sitting in the 7th spot right now.
Oof. That's no man's land. You don't want to be 7th in the 7th spot in the NBA.
No, they're playing the Sixers in the first round right now.
Well, not just that, but like you're good enough to make the playoffs, which keeps you out of the lottery, but 7th seed's never going to win the NBA finals. So like, what's the point?
Which is what I've been trying to tell Atticus. I was like, you know, your 500 team is going to be 500 for the next decade.
Right. Like, yeah, congratulations on making, NBA is like that. Like you either want to be one of the top 5-6 teams, like the top 3 in either conference, or you want to be in the lottery. That there is no in between. The NBA needs to fix the lottery. They just need to take it out. Like
they should have a play-in tournament, right? Like, okay, here's the lottery teams. Here's a tournament. Whoever wins gets the number 1 pick.
Why even do that though? Why don't they just do work? Because
teams are gonna do what the Sixers did, right?
Which I get, but here's the thing: teams do it anyway, and doing that doesn't even guarantee you getting a good pick. Like doing that doesn't even. So you get these teams stuck in this constant cycle of tanking because they're tanking. They have the best odds for the first pick, but then they end up with the 8th pick. Like it, just give them so that way, yeah, teams are going to tank. They're going to do it regardless. So at least give them a good pick, so that way they're less likely to tank. You know, because all it is we're just waiting 5 years till whatever star goes off to Miami anyway, or LA, or like
apparently it's Brooklyn now. What Brooklyn's doing is just stupid.
I will say,
okay.
I
So
know everyone. I know
they got
everyone,
KD and Kyrie, right? And then they get Harden in a trade, and then the Pistons let go Blake Griffin. Yeah, come play in Brooklyn. And then the Spurs let go of LaMarcus Aldridge. I'll come play in Brooklyn. Like, what the fuck, dude?
They're basically like their starting lineup is going to be the NFC or the East All Stars, right? If it didn't already happen. Well, they don't even do that anymore. They do the LeBron
I don't know what they did. They did something. It was dumb.
No, they've been doing it for a while now because like LeBron is like 4-0. LeBron's team or whatever is 4-0. And they like 4 or 5 years ago they started like it's been LeBron. I don't know how they pick who does it, but it's been
they
LeBron.
Do a draft. They flip a coin. So it's Durant versus LeBron. They flip a coin.
Right, but 1 year is like Curry versus LeBron. Like I don't know how they choose who picks. They just
it's terrible.
Yeah, it's kind of
terrible.
Nah. I want to see I want some pride back in it. No, but I mean, I will say this: for as much as people crap on LeBron because he's whatever in the finals and blah blah, Jordan did not have people forming super teams to beat him. There was no.
They just tried to kill him.
Well, yeah, but I
mean, they mauled him every time he made it anywhere close to the paint.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
that's why he bulked up. You know what I mean?
Half his greatest plays are him shoving Cleveland Cavaliers around the court. So it was all legal back then. So I don't want to hear, he got people. Well, yeah, but he also did his own fair share of pushing off and everything else. Go look at his shot against.
I've looked at it, dude. Like,
go look at it.
If you're going this way, if you're going this way already, and I cross over and just kind of, give you a little swipe to get the fuck out of my way.
Full arm extended. You know what's real hard to do? When you're already going that way, stop and defend the guy when he's shoving you in the back the way you're going.
So I'm a Laker fan, right?
Yeah.
But I struggle with LeBron just because, he has to proclaim that he's the greatest ever. And Jordan never did that. And he still doesn't, right? Like maybe on the court he did, like, but like
you watched the 8-part miniseries where he's like, and I took that personally. Like, so here's the thing. You say this, but then
he didn't say it out loud then.
We know he didn't make his varsity high school team or whatever his first year because he tells us that story, even though apparently what actually happened was no freshmen make the varsity. That's just a rule at that school. Like that's what came out. But he still holds that, like, no.
He doesn't tell that story.
Yes, he does. How do I know it? Because he told it.
Because people tell it.
And how do they know it? Because he told it.
Because somebody like you and me made it up one day because we went to high school with him.
Really? We can Google it. You want it? His NBA, his acceptance speech at the Hall of Fame, he was like still carrying grudges against people. What are you talking about?
Oh, he's a competitor. He's a competitor.
Right. The only reason why Jordan doesn't have the same like ambiance that LeBron has is because Jordan grew up was big before Facebook.
Possibly.
We didn't have 24/7 NBA coverage like we do now back then.
Still the GOAT. Still the GOAT.
The only thing I will give Jordan, even though he tried to get out, he did stay at one team the whole time. That's the one thing I will give him over LeBron. And I think that's like the problem LeBron runs into is he's kind of got that hired gun feel to him, which is kind of weird for arguably the best player today. Like
today, LeBron is the best player in the game, right? All around, without a doubt.
I mean, in any given
without a doubt, Jordan. The thing that Jordan has that LeBron doesn't is he didn't lose. Once he got to the playoffs, he didn't lose.
Well, no, that's not true. He lost in the playoffs. He never got lost in the finals.
Once he got to the finals, never lost.
He was also never the underdog in the finals. Like,
he was.
What series was he the underdog?
I don't think they were favored against. I think the Jazz might have been favored one of those years. The Jazz were the better team during the regular season.
They weren't favored. They weren't favored. Go look it up. They were not favored. Jordan was the favorite in every one of his NBA finals. Let me put it this way. This is why I will always think LeBron James is on the is better than Jordan. Go look at the 2007 Cleveland Cavaliers roster and tell me how far you think Jordan drags that team, because LeBron dragged it to the finals. Now, granted, they got swept in the finals to a far superior Spurs team, but Jordan does not bring the 07 Cavs to the finals. Jordan would kill Sasa Vujacic before he started with him in an NBA Finals game.
Okay, I'll combat that with look at the teams that Jordan took to the conference finals. Right, the teams that he lost to before getting to the finals were a murderer's row, man. Like he lost to the Celtics with Bird. Like he almost single-handedly beat Bird and the Celtics on a couple occasions.
But that was like in the first round that they lost. It's not like he was dragging his team. Again,
once they beat the Celtics, who's going to stop them? You know what I mean?
I mean, he comes back and loses to the Magic.
Look at the Knicks teams he had to play against. Look at the Detroit teams he had to play against. You know, I mean, you're not comparing apples to apples. The East, who was LeBron competing with in the East?
Without looking it up, name one other player on that East team or on that 07 Cavs team. Without looking it up, look at me. Name one other player. One.
Vujovic. Sideshow Bob. That's what I call him.
Bergeau? No, wrong. He wasn't on the team then. Name one other player. Don't look it up.
I'm looking it up.
I can name one other player on that team, and I'm a Cavs fan. Zydrunas Ilgauskas is the only other player I can name from that team.
Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
Big Z.
Eric Snow.
Yeah.
Anderson Varejao was on the team. So
okay, he was like a backup. Congratulations. Okay, yeah. Let's see Jordan pull Anderson Varejao as his where would you rank him on that team? Look at that roster again. Where would you rank him? What would you say he's the sixth best player on that team? Fifth best? Fourth best? Where would you say?
They had Daniel Gibson, you know.
Booby. They had Booby Gibson. I have his bobblehead.
Drew Gooden was a decent player at that point in time. He was decent.
Was he Scottie Pippen good? Because Jordan never made a finals without Scottie Pippen. Was he Scottie Pippen good?
No.
Yeah, didn't think so. Was he Dennis Rodman good?
Okay.
Was he
Horace Grant?
Was he Horace Grant good?
Was Horace Grant that good, or was he just
Horace Grant? Horace Grant was an all-star, man.
Sure. Drew Gooden's been an all-star.
Okay. We're gonna play NBA. You could have Drew Gooden. I'm going to have Horace Grant. We'll see who you think has the.
Who else do I have? Do I have Jordan?
You're saying Drew Gooden's possibly the second best player on that team. So that's who you get. I get any one of those other Bulls players I just named, not Michael Jordan. Who do you think wins? Assuming we're equal. Yeah, you can look at that list long and hard. You can have any.
I'm looking at something else. 2007 playoff summary. Okay. Detroit Pistons. Who was that team?
That was the defending NBA champions, is who that team was. That was the what was his name? Tashawn Prince was on that team. Ben Gordon was on that team. Who's it? I can picture this the other skinny, he was a skinny dude. He was one of their guards. I can't think of his name now. But that team was either they had won it the year before, or they were 2 years. They were Pistons either won it in 05 or 06.
Okay.
So they
beat the Wizards, they beat the Nets, and they beat the Pistons. And all three of those teams in 2000 and 2002 were probably really good. In 2007, they were old.
Hold on. Pistons. When did the Pistons were number 1 in the East in 2006.
They had Chauncey Billups,
Chauncey Billups, that Big Shot Billups. That's who I was thinking of.
who was 30 at the time, which is kind of old. They had Dale Davis, who was super old at the time.
Dude, they
They had Rip Hamilton, who was old or getting older, and injured.
The 2004-2005 Pistons won the NBA championship. The 2005-2006 Pistons lost the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's not like this was some like scrub team.
It was a team that was getting old. It was a team that was getting old.
Okay, so let's play the same game. If you're picking an NBA team, do you pick Rip Hamilton or Drew Gooden?
It depends.
Okay, it depends.
Because when Rip was not injured, pre-injury, when they were going to the finals and winning back to back, he was decent.
Okay, fine. Let's just pretend that Drew Gooden is the second best player on the court when those two teams play. Let's just pretend that. Tell me how many Detroit Pistons you then pick before you pick the next Cav. If you just name 3, you would take over any other Cav. And this is pretending that Drew Gooden is good.
Okay, this is
like
also pretending that Jordan didn't play against better teams in the playoffs before he made it to the finals.
What was a great team he played in the
conference finals before he made the finals?
Yeah.
The Detroit Pistons. Who killed him? Literally.
Okay. Well, yeah, but
literally. How do you think LeBron would have fared going against Bill Laimbeer throwing him to the ground?
Okay, we can't compare that just simply because he plays in a different era. But how did Jordan fare?
He put on like 20 pounds of muscle and got better.
Okay, Jordan with 20 pounds of muscle is still 70 pounds of muscle smaller than LeBron James. I think LeBron James would have been fine.
I hope he would have been, but it's not his game either. He likes to flop. That's another thing.
Well, that's the game. That's the game now, though. Everyone likes it. I mean, for as rough as tumble as everyone tells me, it was back then. They also had John Stockton as a perennial all-star, who is like my left
Stockton was pretty sweet though.
He was. I'm just saying, like, if he could be fined, like, it can't possibly be as rough as everyone makes it sound. I'm sorry, it can't be. John Stockton, BJ Armstrong, all these guys would not have been able to play.
Have you watched it?
Yeah, I did watch it. I was into Jordan back then. I played NBA Jam. I know what's going on. Like, I get LeBron flops. I get that happens, but that's also everyone flops now. That's like that's half of James Harden's game. Like, is jumping into people for foul calls. Like that's how the NBA is played now. Like, it sucks, but that's the game. I'm not like NBA player, like stars get the call. Like that's what ruins the NBA is because if you don't have a star that's getting the calls, you don't have a chance. That's why the Magic perennially suck because they haven't had a all-star. I have this argument all the time. I'm pretty well versed in it.
Okay. You're also a homer. NBA championships, scoring championships, finals MVPs, all-star MVPs, defensive player of the year.
But all that stuff
like,
is
so like what makes a better player? What makes the GOAT? If you are a perennial contender for defensive player of the year, doesn't that make you and you're also one of the greatest offensive threats the game's ever seen? Doesn't that combination make you the all-around best player on the court? Yeah.
No, what makes the best player on the court to me is if I take LeBron James, maybe not now because he's like 36, however old he is, like 4 years ago, right? I take LeBron James off of any team and put him on just about any other team. That team is instantly in the finals conversation, period. Like, I don't care that when he joined the Cavs, they had Kyrie Irving already. That team didn't make the playoffs. That team won 20 games the year before he was there. Miami with Dwayne Wade, like, they either barely made the playoffs or they didn't make the playoffs the year before LeBron James was there. He was there. They were instantly in the finals the next year.
LeBron James and
the Cavs who were in the or on the Eastern Conference Finals the year before, didn't make the playoffs the year after LeBron left. Then what happened when he leaves Miami? They didn't make the playoffs, and the Cavs are instantly in the finals.
With who else? Kyrie.
Right. Well, okay. So
Right.
yeah, he
And
had
you're
another
also forgetting
player.
Bosh. Like LeBron and Bosh both went there. So you had three.
Okay. So, but then you took
that
you took LeBron off. You took LeBron off the Heat. They still had Wade and Bosh. They didn't make the playoffs. Period. They didn't do it. So you can't tell me, well,
suck
Bosh,
the next year though.
they didn't make the playoffs.
But
They went from making the finals to not making the playoffs, and then they only lost one player.
Was Bosh playing?
Yes.
Didn't he start getting hurt by then?
It was the year after that he got the clots.
Yeah.
The year after, but so there was a year they didn't make the playoffs. Kyrie was on the Cavs before LeBron James joined, and they didn't make that. They won 20 games. Jordan didn't do anything before Scottie Pippen, didn't do anything after Scottie Pippen.
So if Jordan goes to name a team in the 90s,
The Charlotte Hornets.
doesn't make them instantly better.
I'm not saying it doesn't make them better. I don't say
It is prime.
No, I don't think he does. Do you
No?
think you could do the same thing with Kobe? Kobe, like if you took Kobe and put him on any, like I think Kobe
Look what team he took to the championship.
Yeah, it had Paul Gasol. It had other players. It wasn't just Kobe. When
What did
Shaq
Paul
left,
do without Kobe?
when Shaq left,
When Shaq left, he still won 2 more championships. After
right? No, my point is when Shaq left, there was a while there where they were saying the Clippers were the better team in LA. And this was like the early 2000 Clippers.
Right.
I'm not saying Kobe's bad. That's not my argument. What I'm saying is
I think Kobe's better than LeBron.
See, I think Kobe and Jordan, they're good players. I think they need proper pieces around them. I think you can't just pull them off any team and just throw them on any team and they're instantly better. I think you can with
I don't think you they are absolutely instantly better when you throw them on any team. Absolutely instantly better. You can't put LeBron on any team and they go to the finals. You can't
not this year, but like 5 years ago in LeBron's prime. Yeah, you could, because he did it over and over again.
But he had other players.
They took Jordan off the 94 Bulls. They won 2 less games. He was on stacked teams. Stop pretending like his teams are crap. He would not have taken the 07 Cavs near the playoffs, let alone.
Stop pretending like the teams LeBron won with weren't stacked, because they were.
The 07 Cavs were stacked.
Did they win the championship?
They made it to the finals. Do you think Jordan pulls that team to the finals?
Yep.
Jordan would have shot 5 people on that team before, as they were missing the playoffs.
They would have made it to the finals in the East that year.
No, they wouldn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, they would.
Yeah, they would.
Then Jordan would have pulled one of the teams that he was on before Pippen to the finals, before or after.
Different ball game, man. I'm telling you, they were playing better quality teams then. You were playing teams in the early 90s that were still stacked and loaded in the East. The East has been dreck since 2000 for the most part, with the exception of the Miami Heat and the Cleveland Cavaliers winning, right? Toronto winning was an anomaly. You know, they should have never made it to the finals. You know.
Hold on 1 second. I gotta make one more point, and then I gotta get going because hold on 1 second. Finals. So really quick, 2000. So the West has, since 2000, the West has won the majority of the finals, but they're all won by the Lakers and the Spurs and the Warriors.
Yeah. But if you look at the conference records too, there was better teams in those conferences. Just like this year, right? Like just like this year, the top 3 teams in the East are good, right? beyond that, you're looking at 500 or below, right? If you look at the West, you got LA Clippers, LA Lakers, Utah Jazz, Phoenix Suns. All those teams are quad. The Lakers are in fourth right now in the conference.
Well, yeah, LeBron's also been injured for the last 3 weeks. They were
not LeBron. AD's been injured.
Well, so's LeBron. LeBron had a high ankle sprain 2 weeks ago.
Plus, they don't play every game anymore.
Well, they don't. Yeah,
they don't do that.
I think LeBron's played one complete full season since at least on the Cavs, because they made a big deal about it when he did it. So, well, anyway, not to cut this short, but I do got to get going. So,
fun fact: Michael Jordan's better than LeBron James.
I mean, I control the fun fact, so that's not happening. But
we'll continue this conversation.
For sure.
Even though it's a football podcast, we'll get back into it.
For sure. We'll get Atticus in here. Hopefully they win so we can get them back on. But
yeah.
All right, man.
All right.
It's fun. It's been fun for Friday.
It's been a good one, man.
Yep. Catch you next time.
Later.
Bye. Well, everybody, that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks for listening. Here's a random weekly fun fact for you.
Over the last 20 seasons, the New York Knicks have had an abysmal .402 winning percentage. That, of course, was dead last in the NBA.
Anyway, this has been the Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast. It's been a pleasure, and as always,